food shortages if the violence doesn't end soon.
People who were seeking protection in one of the last churches standing in Malakal, 1,756 people, and we've managed to go into the center of town under extremely difficult and dangerous circumstances, and we've been able to take those people into a much safer situation inside the UNMISS base.
The pathetic situation has not only attracted the likes of aid organizations, but presidents as well. Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta pledged his support for South Sudan President Salva Kiir on Wednesday, February the 26th, during a one-day official visit to the country.
To want to see, especially a position like you said, together as IGA, follow and implement. We want to see cessation of hostilities. We want to have the ability in the shortest possible time. We also put in place a monitoring mechanism. All of these efforts, all geared towards ensuring quick, speedy resolution, peace for the people of South Sudan, and stability for the whole region, so that we can all focus our energies and our attention on driving the social and economic agenda of our region.
Mr. Kenyatta held talks with Mr. Kiir that concentrated on efforts to find a solution to the conflict. The warring sides in South Sudan, the world's youngest country, after seceding from Sudan in 2011, signed a ceasefire on January the 23rd this year, but sporadic clashes have continued.
Now, despite warnings from Washington, Uganda chose to take the moral route and opted to sign an anti-gay bill into law. The law toughens penalties for gay people, but without a clause criminalizing those who do not report them. It includes life sentences for gay sex and same-sex marriage, but a proposed sentence of up to 14 years for first-time offenders has been removed. This law does have some consequences, though, and that includes jeopardizing foreign aid.
President Yoweri Museveni of Uganda may have counted his losses when he signed the anti-gay bill into law last week. But what he may not have seen coming so soon is its European donors withdrawing aid. President Museveni initialed the bill on Monday, February the 24th, drawing immediate criticism from Western donors and Washington. However, within hours, Norway and Denmark said they were holding back aid. Austria also said it would review assistance. If the aid cuts become widespread, Uganda could be forced to cut spending or borrow even more. When donors suspended aid in 2012 over graft concerns, Uganda had to revise its growth outlook downwards.
I'm not able to understand the logic of the Western culture. However, we Africans always keep our opinions to ourselves and never seek to impose our point of view on others. If only they could let us alone.
Sweden hasn't announced a suspension in aid, but hinted in a rather elaborate manner.
Our own aid program with Uganda, and obviously this is a factor that has to be taken into account. It is not a positive factor, but a major problem that we will have to deal with.
Even though Sweden is committed to its partnership with Uganda, the new law might be a problem in the long run.
But there are also, in the Swedish aid to Uganda, very important areas, supporting the civil society, improving healthcare and research and development that are important. So we see this as a Swedish long-term commitment to a partnership with Uganda, but this is a political issue that is quite problematic in the medium and short term, I must say.
Borg, who was on a planned visit to Uganda, met with gay activists in Kampala on Monday evening ahead of meetings with his counterpart and the Ugandan Prime Minister. Homosexuality is a taboo in almost all African countries and illegal in 37, including Uganda, where rights groups say gay people have long risked jail.
Now, this new anti-gay law does have its critics, particularly in the West, but let's listen to what Ugandans have to say about it.
The president signed the anti-homosexuality bill was extremely good because all Ugandans decided not to adopt that homosexuality bill. It was actually extremely very bad for Ugandans adopt that. So all Ugandans are very happy about that.
I'm very happy for our president to sign this bill because, I mean, bring us hope to our nation, and even our children now, they are safe.
Some rather interesting reactions there. Well, after the break on Network Africa, 26 people get the death sentence in Egypt over a Suez terror plot. Join me again in a bit for the details.
22 airports around the country, an industry that generates billions of naira, connecting millions for business and leisure, will put you through the paces and give you an insider's view on the aviation industry. Watch Aviation This Week only on Channels Television. Aviation This Week, keeping an eye on the aviation industry.
Welcome back. You're still tuned to Network Africa on Channels Television. Let's get right back to it. An Egyptian court has sentenced 26 people to death for founding a terror group with the aim of attacking ships using the Suez Canal. The men were also accused of manufacturing missiles and explosives. The sentencing came after the new Prime Minister designate, Ibrahim Baklab, vowed he would crush terrorism in all the corners of the country. Mr. Baklab has been put in charge of forming a new government following the surprise resignation of interim Prime Minister Hazem Beblawi and his cabinet. Still talking Egypt, it's been a year and a special ceremony was put together in the Egyptian city of Luxor to remember the 19 people killed when a hot air balloon caught fire and plummeted to the ground on February the 26th last year. Consular representatives from France, China, Britain and Japan, as well as local residents and officials, laid flowers at the site of the crash in honor of the victims, all but one of whom were foreign tourists.
Last February, the balloon crashed on the west bank of the Nile River. Following the disaster, hot air balloon flights were briefly halted. Early morning hot air balloon rides are popular among tourists visiting Luxor's temples and Valley of the Kings. A report released by Egypt's Civil Aviation Authority in January concluded that the crash was probably caused by a fuel leak. The report stated that the fuel, which is likely to have leaked from a hose, was set alight by the balloon's burner. Local Belgian resident of Luxor, Ingrid Lupin, attended the ceremony to offer her condolences.
We wish certainly the families who are still here to continue living and having wonderful souvenirs of those they have lost here one day on a vacation, you know. But I'm sure they must have had a wonderful time anyway, being here. And my mother died when she was very young, and she said, you know, dying is not terrible for the one who dies, it's for those who are left over. And so we're more thinking of those who are left over than those who died, basically.
The pilot was lucky to escape, but not without serious injuries. He was badly burned in the disaster when he managed to leap from the balloon before it rose rapidly into the air. At around 1,000 feet, the canopy was engulfed in flames and the basket crashed to the ground, killing all on board. The victims' families have expressed frustrations that an Egyptian judicial inquiry has not yet been completed and that early allegations of human error have not been fully addressed. In addition to the tragic loss of life, last year's balloon disaster was a further blow to local residents who rely on foreign visitors for their livelihoods. Last year's crash is the deadliest ballooning accident on record.
Now, if you recall last week's episode, I did tell you that an ultimatum was given by an alleged terrorist group called Ansar al-Maghdis, which warned all foreign tourists to leave Egypt by the 20th. The Egyptian government did not take the threat for granted and wasn't going to leave anything to chance. It opted to be